Welcome to our webinar recording on healthy eating with diabetes. Today we're going to be talking about what, how much, and when to eat. We're going to give you quick tips on how to read food labels. We're going to talk about the very important role of physical activity. And last but not least, we're going to talk about setting goals. Let's start with a true or false question. People with diabetes should eat a special diabetic diet. Do you think that's true or false? The answer is false. There is not a specific diet for people with diabetes, but it's rather about healthy eating. With healthy eating, we know that one size doesn't fit all. However, we can follow some general principles. So let's explore some ideas around how you can prioritize healthy eating and commit to your personal health. In this section, we will talk about what to eat by reviewing the food groups that are part of the balanced plate method. This balanced food plate was designed to help us develop an eating pattern that is linked with positive health effects and prevention of chronic disease. The plate method suggests you plan your portions in the following way. Fill half your plate with vegetables. Divide the other half of your plate between protein and carbohydrate foods. We encourage you to choose a variety of vegetables through the week, as different colored vegetables have different nutrients. Vegetables and fruits also have a lot of antioxidants, which are important to help reduce inflammation. In diabetes, this is important. One tip to maximize these nutrients is to try to eat dark green vegetables every day. Also, eat orange vegetables a few times a week. The bottom right corner shows the protein part of our plate. When it comes to animal foods, try to have fatty fish twice a week to get your omega-3 fats. These fats help to reduce inflammation. Your body doesn't make these fats, so you need to have them from food. For other types of animal protein options, choose leaner types of meat, most often such as skinless chicken, turkey, or lean red meats. Examples of fatty fish are sardines, trout, mackerel, salmon. Try to have plant protein more often as they have many health benefits. Examples are beans, lentils, chickpeas, soybeans, edamame, tofu, and peas. If you're not familiar with these foods, think of trying them once a week to start. Ideally, aim to have them 3 or more times a week if you can. The top right-hand corner of the plate has your carbohydrates. These are any whole grains or starchy root vegetables such as sweet potato, yam, potato, corn, cassava, and so on. Fruit also fits in this section, but to better manage the carbohydrate amounts that you eat at the meal, consider including fruit as part of a snack instead. If you're choosing grain products, the goal is to choose whole grains more often instead of refined grains, as they are better for your blood sugar and are more nutritious. What are whole grains? Whole grains include grains like wild or brown rice, oats, barley, quinoa, spelt, rye, and many others. They are whole if they have all 3 parts of the grain as you see in the picture. On the other hand, refined grains such as white bread, white rice, white pasta have parts of the grain removed. Usually, what has been removed is the bran and the germ, along with fiber and many of its nutrients. So, explore different grains, don't just stick to wheat or rice. You will find that your sugar spikes less with some grains such as barley or quinoa or buckwheat, for example. Now it's time to talk about carbohydrates in more detail. Carbohydrates come in 3 main forms: simple sugars, starch, and fiber. They all have different effects on your blood sugar. There are different types of simple sugars, and you might have seen names like glucose, maltose, sucrose, lactose. Many of these names ending in OSE on food labels are simple sugars. They're small, only 1 to 2 molecules in length, so they get digested very quickly and could create spikes in your blood sugar, especially if the food doesn't have any fiber. For example, fruits have fiber and get absorbed slower than juice, which doesn't have fiber. Starch is a carbohydrate that is made of very large chains of sugar units linked together. Starch takes longer to break down than simple sugars because the molecules are much larger. Simple sugars and starch both get broken down to glucose and get absorbed in our bloodstream to be used as energy. Absorption of the starch is slower if the food is also composed of fiber, such as in the case of whole grains, as mentioned earlier. Fiber is very different as it cannot get broken down in the body, but it has many health benefits. You can see in the picture that food sources of fiber are plant foods. That's why the healthy plate method emphasizes eating a lot of plant foods. Because fiber doesn't get broken down, it slows down digestion and helps to reduce the rise in blood sugars after meals. It makes you fuller for a longer time, so it's helpful in weight management. As you may already know, it promotes healthy bowels. Also, foods that are high in fiber are foods for healthy gut bacteria, which are important for our metabolism and our immune system. And last but not least, fiber binds cholesterol, and so it can help to reduce it and help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. You might be asking yourself, how do I know what carbohydrates spike my blood sugars less? Well, to answer this question, you can use the Glycemic Index Food Guide resource on our website or on the Diabetes Canada website. It categorizes foods using a traffic light system. The green column represents the foods that spike your blood sugar the least. So it's like a green traffic light, indicating that you can go and choose these foods most often. You can review that later, and we encourage you to look at your food staples. If your food staples fall in the red section, try to swap them for a yellow or green food more often. The goal is to reduce the blood sugar spike after meals, as you can see by looking at the curves on this slide. The yellow curve obtained after eating a low glycemic index food is much better than the one in red, representing a high glycemic index food. Carbohydrates have the fastest and highest impact on blood sugar levels. To help slow down the release of these sugars into the bloodstream, adding protein and good natural fats to the carbs as part of a balanced meal helps reduce the spike in blood sugar. This is because the presence of fat and protein slows down digestion so that the glucose gets into the blood at a slower rate. And of course, let's not forget fiber, which is also very helpful.
Let's move to our section on food trivia. Please try to answer to the questions on the following slides. Sweet potatoes goes in what section of the balance plate? 1. Carbohydrate, 2. Vegetables, 3. Protein. In the carbohydrate section, sweet potatoes mainly contain carbohydrates in the form of starch and fiber. Foods that contain carbohydrates are very nutritious if they are unprocessed. For example, sweet potato is a good source of beta carotene and vitamin C, which are nutrients that are important to the immune system. Lentils are part of what section of the balance plate? 1. Carbohydrates, 2. Vegetables, 3. Proteins. Lentils are very rich in protein. Actually, beans, lentils, and chickpeas are all high in protein and they are some of the foods that are the highest in fiber. They contribute a bit to the glucose levels in your blood after a meal because they also have carbohydrate, but they are very low in glycemic index. They are, however, placed in the protein part of the plate for a better balance. Dry fruit can have a big impact on blood sugar levels as they are very sweet. True or false? And the answer is true. They could if you don't watch the portions. When drying fruit, it shrinks, so we tend to eat more. So keep it to no more than a quarter of a cup at a time. More than that might be too much sugar for you. Sometimes dry cranberries or other dry fruits have added sugar. Sugar is often added to help with the drying process. So reading food labels for the added ingredients is important and helps you make better choices. Nuts have good fats and protein. They don't increase your blood sugar. True or false? And the answer is yes, it's true since they are not high in carbohydrate. They are part of a heart healthy diet. Just be mindful of your portion and avoid the added salt. You can enjoy a variety of nuts, but limit your portion to a quarter of a cup per day. Cheese is a source of protein and fat, and it does not affect blood sugars. True or false? And the answer is true since it does not have carbohydrate. On the other hand, yogurt and milk have a small amount of carbohydrate in the form of lactose, and that's okay. They are still very nutritious. Cheese doesn't have lactose as it has been removed in the production process. So we often tell to our patients a very good tip to remember in the following slide. This is a good tip to remember, especially when it comes to choose the best low-fat cheese. Review the percentage of the milk fat or MF, that stands for milk fat. Usually you will see this information on the front of the package as you see on these images. And also, of course, control the portions as well. Try to aim for cheeses that are less than 20% of milk fat. Too much saturated fat in the diet can 1. Increase LDL cholesterol, or 2. Increase insulin resistance. Remember that LDL cholesterol is the bad cholesterol, and insulin resistance is when the fat in your organs don't allow insulin to be recognized by your cells. So insulin doesn't end up working as it should. So the answer to this question is both 1 and 2. Too much saturated fat in the diet can over time increase your cholesterol, which can in turn increase your risk of heart disease. Too much saturated fat can also worsen your blood sugars over time through insulin resistance. Unsaturated fats versus saturated fats. Which is better? What is too much saturated fat? Just try to have more unsaturated fats to replace some of the saturated fats in your diet. Saturated fats are found in animal based foods such as fatty cuts of beef, pork, poultry skin, full fat dairy products, eggs, and tropical oils such as coconut and palm oils. Because they're typically solid at room temperature, they are sometimes called solid fats. Replacing foods high in saturated fat with healthier options like unsaturated fats can lower risk of heart disease. You can see the healthier options on your left. These include fatty fish such as salmon, sardines, herring, mackerel, and tuna, walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, tofu, and a variety of vegetable oils. The oils that have been studied the most for their health benefits are extra virgin olive oil and canola oil. What about processed foods? The most harmful saturated fats are found in processed foods. Highly processed foods are sometimes called entertainment foods because we can enjoy them, but less often and in smaller portions. You don't have to feel guilty when you have them. Moderation is really the key. But it is important to know that these foods have saturated and trans fats. As we talk about processed foods, let's get back to discussing sugars. Sweetened beverages have a lot of sugar, so we want to try to limit these. These beverages are not found in nature, and our bodies are not well equipped to handle these. For your reference, 1 teaspoon of sugar equals 4 grams, which will give you a better idea of the sugar content when you are reading food labels. We encourage you to eat your fruit rather than drink it. You can aim for 3 small fruits a day. Also, keep in mind that the healthiest beverage is water. If you'd like some flavor, think of adding some berries, lemon, cucumber, mint, or ginger to your water. Just some ideas if it helps you enjoy it more. Natural sugar like maple syrup, honey, or agave syrup does not raise blood sugar. True or false? And the answer is false. Even though these forms of added sugars are natural sugars, they contain glucose. Often clients tell us that they have replaced their white sugar for brown sugar or honey. Unfortunately, we have to tell them that they are the same and it affects blood sugars in the same way. If you're reading food labels, you might have seen words like aspartame, sucralose, stevia, and monk fruit extract. These types of sweeteners don't raise your blood sugars. For more information about the different sugars and sweeteners that you might find in the foods that you eat, you can refer to the handout that it's called Sugars and Sweeteners from Diabetes Canada. This handout will show you which sweetener affect your blood sugar and which don't. Even if you're making choices when it comes to what you eat, you still need to be aware of how much to eat. In this section, we'll talk about mindful eating and the handy portion guide and end with practical examples. How much to eat starts with being mindful of your portion sizes. So start by asking yourself, what is the size of your plate? The average size of the American dinner plate has increased from 9 inches to 12 inches over the last decades. Overall, we tend to eat more due to our food environment and what is readily available. This has changed over the last few decades, as you can see. Also, processed foods and restaurant foods are more flavorful and have more sugar, more salt, and all of this can increase our appetites. So, one thing we can do is being mindful of the effect of pre prepared foods on our appetites and eating less of that. Secondly, using a smaller plate is always a good strategy.
Just to understand mindful eating more clearly, it's important to know that we may also overeat when we are distracted. Example, when watching TV and when we eat fast because we are in a rush. Being mindful of your eating habits is making time to eat more slowly and knowing when to stop eating. Remember that it takes 20 minutes for your stomach to tell your brain it's full. Using the scale above, the goal is to stop eating when you are satisfied or comfortable, that's between a 6 and a 7, and not until you are full. This hunger scale can also be used as a tool to help you identify the normal fluctuations of hunger that you may feel throughout the day. Ideally, we would fluctuate between a 3 and a 7, as shown in this slide throughout the day and avoid getting to extremes on either end. Being mindful will help us better manage the amount of food that we eat and will also help us to keep the blood glucose more stable. Now, um, this is an example of a handy portion guide. This is aside from the plate method. Your hands can be very useful in estimating appropriate portions. When planning a meal, you can use the following portion sizes as a guide. So if you're looking for grains and starches, choose an amount the size of your fist for grains or starches or fruit. Vegetables, choose as much as you can hold in both hands. Choose brightly colored vegetables, example green or yellow beans, broccoli as examples. For meat and alternates, choose an amount the size of a palm or of your palm or your hand and the thickness of the little finger. As far as fat is concerned, limit fat to an amount the size of the tip of your thumb. For cheese, 1.5 ounces is around 50 grams, which is equal to 2 thumbs, as you can see in this image above. A note on added fats. Among the vegetable oils, extra virgin olive oil has been the most studied as part of a heart healthy diet and found to be beneficial. You can use other vegetable oils in small amounts if you prefer, but try to avoid tropical oils such as palm oil and coconut oil because they are high in saturated fat. Also, margarine is better than butter as it has less saturated fat. But if you prefer butter and only have a little of it, that's fine. Cheese, when you choose cheese, as we already indicated the portion size, you want to choose less than 20% milk fat, lower fat milk, and alternates most often. Now let's look at how the plate method can be used as a guide to make your breakfast. Usually, people's greatest challenge is including vegetables and fruit. It's all about being creative. You can try having a sliced apple on top of toast with peanut butter, adding lots of vegetables to a frittata or breakfast sandwich, filling half your bowl of oatmeal with berries and chopped fruit and nuts, making a vegetable omelette with a side of fruit and half a whole grain bagel. You can see the examples on this slide have a starch, a protein, and a vegetable or a fruit. This is an example of a South Asian style lunch. You can see that there is a 6-inch whole wheat roti and some chickpeas for protein, and vegetables take up half the plate. You can also add some fruit and yogurt on the side if you're still hungry. Everyone's needs are different. If you feel that you could work on your portions, it is worthwhile to reflect on the size of your plate. Diabetes usually improves with some weight loss. However, rather than dieting, we recommend making lifelong healthy habits that you can sustain, eating mindfully and being active. So, the next thing we would be talking about is when to eat. So in this section, we will be discussing how many times do you usually eat during the day? Does the timing of your meals, snacks change from day to day? Have you ever skipped a meal? And if yes, what effect did it have on your blood sugars? These are some things for you to think about in this section. Now, eating your meals distributed evenly throughout the day can be helpful when it comes to managing your diabetes and your blood sugar levels. So, here are some guidelines. Eat 3 meals per day, focus on eating at regular meal times, space meals no more than 4 to 6 hours apart. You may benefit from a healthy snack if meals are spaced more than 6 hours apart. Snacks have an important role when it comes to mindful eating and can be an important part of your meal plan if you have diabetes. But how many snacks should you have each day? And what should you snack on? Here is a list of healthy snack combinations. Choose a protein and a carbohydrate option for a balanced snack. But before you have a snack, ask yourself these questions. Do I really need to have a snack? And you are more likely to need a snack throughout the day if you eat your meals longer than 4 to 6 hours apart and or eat small meals, take certain medications, and if you're exercising. Here are some examples of snack combinations. Apple, pear, or any fruit with quarter cup of unsalted nuts. Unsalted plain popcorn with roasted soy nuts. Steamed edamame with one fresh orange as examples. We've looked at how much to eat, what to eat, and when to eat. How about packaged foods? This is when label reading is very important. So, how to read your food labels and how do they help? They allow you to compare between labels and make better choices. What do you look for in a food label? You want to look at both the nutrient facts table and the ingredient list. The nutritional facts table tell you what amount of nutrients a food has in a given portion. Here we see listed at the top of the label that they are referring to a portion of 12 crackers. How many calories are there in 12 crackers? In the above label, there are 107 calories. The different nutrients required by Health Canada are listed here. There are 13 mandatory nutrients that is listed in all labels. And the percentage daily value tells you whether there is a little or a lot of a particular nutrient. A nutrient is considered to be smaller or lower if it's less than 5%, but a nutrient is considered to be a lot when it's more than 15%. So you want less of cholesterol, fat, sodium, and sugars, while you want more of fiber, protein, vitamins, and minerals. The list of ingredients lists all the ingredients in a food product in order of weight. This means that the food product contains more of the ingredients found at the beginning of the list and less of the ingredients at the end of the list. In this cereal package above, you can see that there is a long list of ingredients compared to the ingredient list shown there at the bottom of the slide. It is generally better to select foods with less ingredients as it generally is less processed. And of course, the less we rely on packaged foods, the more we focus on eating whole foods, which is obviously better for our health. It's important, as you all know, keeping active is good for everyone, but it is especially important for people with diabetes. On this slide, you can see all the benefits of keeping active. For some of you, it might be the reason why you keep motivated. The important takeaway message is every form of physical activity counts when it comes to keeping active. There are some basic recommendations or guidelines that you should keep in mind. For aerobic exercise, we recommend 150 minutes per week or 30 minutes 5 times per week. On the other hand, we also recommend to add resistance exercise 3 times per week. Once again, it's very important that whichever activity you choose, you enjoy doing it, and also it needs to be sustainable. And another important rule is sit less and move more. In this section, we'll look at setting some smart goals. Making some lifestyle changes is probably on your to-do list to improve your diabetes management and to keep your blood sugar within your target range. However, change, whether small or big, is often hard to make and can be even harder to sustain. One solution is setting goals for yourself and outline the steps you'll take to achieve them. For the best chance at success, experts say make your goals SMART, which means it should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So start by thinking what matters most to you. Your diabetes goals and priorities should match. For example, if I said, I will start exercising, it's not a smart goal. It doesn't tell me when I will start exercising, how much time would I exercise. So it's missing all those components. So, in order to make my goal smart, I may say something like, I will start exercising from 4th of June for at least 30 minutes every day. That could be one of the ways to put up a SMART goal. I know we've covered quite a bit. It'll be good for us to summarize all that we learned today. So adhere to your medications as prescribed. If you have any issues or concerns with your current medication regime, this is something worth discussing. Determine your individual glucose monitoring schedule or frequency. This can be a discussion with your family doctor or diabetes educator. Ensure annual preventive screening is completed. These are the tests for your eyes, kidney, and feet. Aim to have balanced meals as we had discussed during the healthy lifestyle section. Be physically active, and finally, set smart goals. Thank you for all for your participation.